Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lawcast. This week, we're taking a trip back in time to August of 1998 to cover one of the few good Summerslams. It's the culmination of the Highway to Hell in Summerslam 1998.
This is one of maybe 5 good SummerSlams in the 30-plus year career of SummerSlam.
It's not an impressive list.
No, I mean, we literally went from the start, went forward 6 or 7 years, and they were all garbage. So to actually watch a SummerSlam that not only is good, but has like an awesome main event and a lot to talk about, gosh, it's just a treat. It's a good treat, guys. It really is.
It's refreshing. We last left off with King of the Ring 1998, where, of course, Kane defeated Steve Austin to win the WWF Championship in a first blood match after botched interference from The Undertaker. But the question was it botched? Because throughout the summer of 1998, everyone wanted to know, was there collusion between The Undertaker and Kane? Or were they in cahoots? Whatever the fuck that means.
I wonder exactly how much of Kane and The Undertaker's careers in the late 90s were spent just constantly being, are they in cahoots? Are they together? Because together they would be the most dangerous team ever assembled.
Yeah, the are they together like literally went on for years and years. And like even to this day, they'll throw in a nostalgia reunion once in a while. But seemingly The Undertaker and Kane wrestled or were at least involved in each other's storylines on every pay-per-view for literally years here.
And I mean, I can't blame them because it's a spectacle to see them together. Even at this point, like if Kane and The Undertaker came out together now, I would still kind of mark out for it no matter what. To the extent that I've always thought that the way The Undertaker and Kane both should have retired was together, whether in a match or in a tag match I just kind of felt like that would have been apropos.
I never want to see those guys wrestle each other again, and thankfully we probably never will now.
Yeah, it's way too late now. That would have had to happen like 10 years ago.
Yeah. But this whole storyline was brilliant. I think if I were going to criticize it, the only thing I would really criticize is they paid it off. I think they paid it off too soon. I think you should have kept the mystery of whether they were on the same side going into SummerSlam.
But okay, I wasn't watching week to week at the time. I've gone back and watched a lot of this since then. But The Undertaker and Kane are obviously working together. But when Undertaker comes out for this match here, JR is treating him like a babyface 100%.
Yes.
Does that make any sense?
No, it's kind of weird. Like, it seems like they had clearly turned him heel. But for some reason in this match, he is, totally treated as a babyface by the announcers, but also by the crowd. You know, nobody in the crowd's booing him. They're just cheering Austin more.
Right. Because, I mean, while Kane he's in the corporation at this point, right? Kane is?
No, he's kind of Vince's pawn. Like,
okay.
But at the same time, Vince has been pushing the conspiracy that Undertaker and Kane are on the same side for a while. They kind of got into this weird thing where Austin and McMahon kind of stopped feuding for a while here. And like Vince's whole role was just like, he was stirring the pot and being like, everybody knows that The Undertaker and Kane are actually working together and I can prove it.
Now, was that to indicate that Vince was actually trying to warn us about that, or that Vince was just being a blowhard asshole who accidentally turned out to be right?
I think, I don't know. I don't know what to think because obviously, like Taker and Kane working together to get the belt off Austin seems like what Vince wants. Although Vince has had his issues with the Undertaker in this period as well. There's some confusing elements of this storyline, but overall, it was a really good kind of well thought out and planned story arc here. It's just when we actually got to the match probably would have been better if Undertaker had been a proper heel. But then it would have been the question of, like, how is Austin going to get out of here with the title if Undertaker and Kane actually work together?
Right, because they're still holding off on the Austin has to fight them both off at the same time deal.
Yeah, they do that the next month.
Right. But I guess it's just really interesting. Like, it's a great story. I completely agree. Like, I really enjoy it. It's just funny how, like, they tell that whole story, and then the second Undertaker walks out for this match, they just throw all that shit completely out the window.
Yeah, and the story I've heard from kind of various people who were involved at the time is Austin and Taker both really wanted to have like a face versus face, respect match, and Vince wanted the face versus face match too. The funny thing being, they really do properly turn Undertaker heel pretty much right after this. Like, more or less from right here on, he is like an actual total heel.
Which is funny because like he's such a babyface at the end of this match. It seems
Yeah.
like a weird time to just be like, yep, now's the time to fucking make him bad.
Well, him and Kane together are obviously going to be heels. Like, Austin needs somebody to fight.
Right.
So, I mean, the way this went down, Austin challenged Kane to a rematch for the title the night after King of the Ring. Kane accepted. Austin won the title back in what was at the time one of the highest rated cable matches in wrestling history. Awesome moment to see the title change hands on TV. Maybe it would have made more business sense if they had held off until Fully Loaded, because then maybe that pay-per-view would have done a good buy rate for Austin challenging. But they're in a ratings war against WCW, a pretty great moment. And as we've documented, probably what led to WCW doing Hogan versus Goldberg on free TV.
Right.
So,
which we've already
paid off
talked about
great for the WWF. Yeah. After the match, after Austin won, Undertaker got in the ring and he was, I don't know, going to kind of show Austin up and shake his hand or something. And Austin just nailed him with the stunner, which is one of those defining Steve Austin moments.
And that actually brings me to something I was talking to you about before we actually started recording, which is I'm not familiar with Austin actually doing the stunner and winning matches with it. There must have been a time in wrestling where Austin did the stunner outside of promo segments. But I swear to God, when I watch him do it in the ring, I'm just like, oh, that's weird. I'm not like, I'm just very strange to see people actually getting pinned afterwards.
Well, he's still I mean, I guess it's been a little while since he's stunned anybody because he's not, really on WWE TV much anymore. But yeah, still doing it all these years later. Still nothing better than Steve Austin showing up and dropping some dudes with the stunner.
Yeah, as somebody who started watching after the conclusion of really the major part of the Attitude Era, my major memories of Steve Austin are mostly like a retired Steve Austin just stunning random people every time he comes out. Boy, that got fucking tedious after a while, but here, it's still awesome.
Yeah, well, everything Steve Austin does is awesome here. He literally can't do anything wrong.
That's right.
He even pulls off some very questionable fashion choices.
Maybe
cut off jeans, fanny packs. He makes it work.
I will go so far as to say that anyone who has ever been a fan of Steve Austin and criticized John Cena for wearing jorts is a massive hypocrite. Because Steve Austin was in here rocking short shorts and turtlenecks at the same time with big dookie gold chains.
Not a lot of people knew how to dress in this era. Like, you look up and down the roster, there's not a lot of good fashion going on.
And I guess that's part of what made him so appealing to people was that, like, I know at least 10 people whose dads growing up dressed exactly like that.
Yeah, he was the common man.
Yep, he sure was.
On the July 6th episode of Raw, McMahon made a #1 contenders match between Undertaker, Kane, and Mankind. The winner would get to face Austin at SummerSlam for the title. Kane and Mankind came out first. They're waiting for Undertaker. Undertaker doesn't show up. Kane then attacks Mankind from behind, destroys him, and quickly pins him. And then he rips off his mask and reveals it's actually The Undertaker, which is an amazing moment.
Yes.
Yeah. The sheer number of moments from this couple weeks that revolve around Undertaker and Kane dressing as each other is amazing.
And I just love the idea that they had access to each other's wardrobes. And we're just like, yeah, give me Kane's whole fucking getup. I'm going to the ring.
Well, they were in cahoots.
Yep, they sure were. How obvious could it have been? Yes, they're in cahoots.
Yeah.
They share a locker room.
So, McMahon is insisting that Undertaker and Kane are actually working together to prove this. he books Undertaker and Austin to team up against Kane and Mankind in the main event of Fully Loaded. And because they felt like that match needed a little something extra, they had Kane and Mankind win the tag titles. So they would be defending the tag titles against Taker and Austin at Fully Loaded. Also on that Raw where Kane and Mankind win the belts, Shawn Michaels comes out and just joins the commentary team for the show. And that kind of becomes a recurring thing around this time where he's just, a commentator. I assume they were just trying to get something out of him. He couldn't wrestle at this point. So let's see if he's any good on commentary. And he was not.
He might be one of the worst color commentators of all time.
It was bad. Like, for a guy who had loads and loads of personality, in the ring, on the mic, none on commentary.
And I mean, at least part of that is because he was pretty much out of time in his life where he didn't have anything positive to say about anybody. So every segment is just him shitting on everything. Yeah. And like not in a Jerry Lawler kind of way. Like this sucks. Hey, Vin Man.
Vin Man.
Just garbage. And I mean, Triple H also just legendarily shitty at guest commentary. It's hard, people. Not that many people are good at it.
There's an interesting segment a few weeks after this where, like, China is, like, being threatened by the nation, and Michaels shows up and saves her. And at that point, I'm very much like, oh, shit, Shawn's coming back. Like, they're building to Shawn and Rock. Like, that's going to be amazing. But never happens. They end up making Shawn the commissioner a few months after this, and then he's around in that role for a little while, and then he disappears again.
Man, how interesting is it if Shawn comes back here? Because there's no way he's still in the company a year later, right? He probably burns that bridge.
Yeah, no, it would have been very fun to see what you could, because it's okay for him to come back now because Austin is so much cemented as the top guy by this point. And you got loads of people for him to work with, because like him and Triple H can have a really interesting feud. Him and Rock would be amazing. There's still plenty for him and Taker to do. You can do him and Kane, him and Foley. And God, him and Austin again would have been awesome.
Yep. Unfortunately, he's what's the nice way that they put it? Something about demons.
Yeah, he's still dealing with the demons at this point.
Yeah, he's being haunted very heavily.
At Fully Loaded, Austin and Taker beat Kane and Mankind to win the tag titles. Suspiciously in that match, Undertaker is able to pin Kane after only one tombstone, whereas it took 3 to put him down at WrestleMania. Suspicious. Taker leaves with both belts. This is the first time Vince Russo's done this trope that he would go back to a million times throughout his career as the booker, having the two babyfaces who were going to fight each other win the tag titles together.
He loves this idea. And, I mean, it makes sense because it gives them a built-in reason to dislike each other but be forced together. It's way easier to find tag teams for them to face than build up an individual contender. Like, it's smart. It's a smart booking trope to go back to again and again.
Yeah. And at this point, it's still new and different and interesting.
Yeah. Like, there are people who still talk about this to this day. Like, Austin and Undertaker is to win the tag team titles and are uneasy champions together. Like, it's a template.
Also Fully Loaded, Rock retained the Intercontinental title against Triple H in a 2 out of 3 falls match after the 30-minute time limit expired. And a bunch of other matches that no one cared about happened.
True.
It was not a good pay-per-view.
No. Most of them aren't around this time.
No, they did not excel at pay-per-view in this era. They were great at TV. The pay-per-views, they could never recreate the magic of Raw.
And I mean, it makes sense. Like, if your head writer is Vince Russo, your TV is going to be interesting and your pay-per-views are going to be a mess because matches are not something he gives a shit about.
Yeah. On August 10th, Austin and Taker defended the tag belts in a fatal 4-way elimination match. This is one of my favorite, like, random Raw main events of all time. Austin and Taker against Kane and Mankind, the New Age Outlaws, and The Rock and Owen Hart. Like, just to see all those guys fighting each other is just something so cool and different.
Yep.
In that match, Kane and Mankind won back the titles after Kane pinned Undertaker with just a choke slam. Again, suspicious. Something might be going on here.
Oh, my God.
As a random aside, they were doing a post-game show on WWF.com at this point. That's amazing. Like, that's way ahead of its time.
Well, I've said before, like, the one thing that I wish so hard that WWE would take from New Japan is the press conference style after the shows. So, like, a post-game show kind of thing, they try to do something like it now when they have, like, Renee and some wrestlers out there to talk about what happens. But it rings so false because, like, that's not the way anybody who's watching the shows is actually talking about the shows, and they got to ride the line of kayfabe. So it just doesn't really work. But, God, I wish they would experiment more with stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just, and I mean, I would probably credit this to Shane because I don't think Vince was coming up with internet ideas at this point.
God, no. In fact, I don't think Vince even knew they had an internet thing.
Vince McMahon trying to use a computer sounds pretty hilarious to me. I mean, we saw how much he struggled with a phone when they were doing that $1 million giveaway.
Oh, my God. Vince McMahon got rickrolled on national television. That's a real thing that happened.
August 17th, Austin drives into Raw in a hearse. He challenges Undertaker to a fight that night. In the main event, when Undertaker comes out to fight him, it turns out it's actually Kane dressed as Undertaker. Or was it Undertaker wearing a Kane mask? Were we sure?
I'm so confused.
Yeah, it was actually Kane. The tattoos were drawn on. They fight up the ramp to the hearse. Austin throws Kane into the back, and then the window rolls down, and Taker's just like, hey, what's up, dude? And he drives Kane out of the arena as Highway to Hell plays.
Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, we'll get to Highway to Hell in a second. Unfortunately, they edited it out on the network.
Yes, they do.
Go Home Raw on August 24th opens with Undertaker and Kane coming out of the same locker room. Later in the show, they team up and beat up Paul Bear. And then Mankind shows up and he gets Spike tombstoned. And then Austin shows up, but a wall of fire stops him from being able to fight. And Highway to Hell once again plays. Also on that Raw, we had Kane against Mankind in a Hell in a Cell match. Yes, just a couple weeks after King of the Ring 1998, they put Mick Foley in a Hell in a Cell match on free TV.
Hey, that's pretty irresponsible in a number of ways.
Yeah, he did take, a smaller version of the bump off the cage where he gets pulled off as he's climbing. Like, obviously it pales in comparison, but still a pretty rough bump.
There's a promo on this show, which I assume we're going to talk about when Vince and Mick are talking backstage.
That's amazing.
But there's a line in there where Vince is like, they don't just want to see you jump off of cages. And Mankind is like, I'm pretty sure that's not true. Which is probably reflects a very real bitterness on his part where like, hey, I did this super special thing. Now please stop asking me to keep doing it over and over again.
Please push me.
Please push me without having to do this.
So that match went to a no contest after Austin came out of the ring to attack Kane. So the cell is locked. Taker tries to break in. He climbs up to the roof, and McMahon raises up the cage to keep Taker and Austin from being able to fight each other.
Mm-hmm.
So then we have one final segment on this show where Druids bring a casket to the ring. Undertaker comes down for a promo. He said he would beat Austin one-on-one at SummerSlam without help from Kane. He calls out Austin. Vince shows up instead. Vince demanded to know if he and Undertaker were allies against Austin. Undertaker chokeslammed him. Austin comes out of the casket. Then Kane comes out of the casket too. Austin retreats. Flames come up through the ramp like the median lane on the highway. And we are reaching the conclusion of the Highway to Hell.
I do like that. I know that during the In Your House era, a lot of shows had subtitles like this, but I can't think of another SummerSlam and like anywhere near this one that had like such a defined like subtitle and theme.
This is the only time I can remember them ever like building a match around a song like this. Like they never have done. Like, can you think of anything remotely like this?
God, no. I mean, there's other times where they've licensed stuff, but the amount that you have to pay based on how often you're going to use the song. Like if you're just going to use it, for example, when Triple H came out to that Metallica song, since they only used it the one time, or when they used Enter Sandman at One Night Stand. One time is just like a lump sum. But like it escalates the more often that you use it. So if you're using it in the promotion for a pay-per-view, you're using the song dozens of times. Yeah. It's on like the replay. It's on like the residual commercials that they show on TV. Like it's on all the time. It's so expensive.
The video package for this match is just amazing. Like Highway to Hell, Austin and Taker like walking through like this bombed out post-apocalyptic city. Everything's on fire, and then just all these clips of Austin and Taker beating dudes' asses. Like, couldn't be more clear. These are the two baddest dudes in town, and they're going to fight each other.
Is this another one of those examples of like bad timing where like this should be a WrestleMania main event when we look back on history, but just because of the way things worked out, it just didn't line up that way?
Sure, but you know, they end up with Austin and Rock at WrestleMania, and I think that's even better.
Yeah. And I mean,
this show does tremendous business. Like, this is, I believe, the most bought SummerSlam of all time.
Well, that's the funny thing, too, is by the time we get to Survivor Series, like, and I mean, that's for another time, but like, by the time we get to Survivor Series, this is a total afterthought. And The Rock is the biggest star in, like, all of wrestling as a babyface.
He is about to catch fire.
Literally, like 3 months later, this company is completely different.
Yeah. Rock, he's getting there here. I mean, you can kind of sense the way the Garden crowd is reacting to him. You can see he's primed for the babyface run.
Yeah.
So, also on this show, we've got The Rock defending the Intercontinental title against Triple H in a ladder match. Kane and Mankind defending the tag titles against the New Age Outlaws in a street fight. Ken Shamrock versus Owen Hart in a Lion's Den match. X-Pac versus Jeff Jarrett in a hair versus hair match. Like, what a stacked card.
Yes. And all the other matches are weird as fuck, so that only adds to the appeal.
Can't wait to talk about them. But first, let's talk about Sunday Night Heat that led into this pay-per-view.
Yay!
Which is on WWE Network now.
Is it really?
Yeah, they've added some Sunday Night Heats. Like, they've added the first, like, year or so.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, tidbits, you've got Shane McMahon and Shawn Michaels on commentary. That's interesting.
Maybe the worst commentary team I can possibly imagine.
Shane McMahon was wretched on commentary. Like, another case of great promo, horrible commentator.
And see, he's a great promo because he puts a lot of emotion into his stuff and he can just channel being a rich douchebag really well.
Yeah.
But, like, he can't do what Vince can do. He's not a born promoter. Like, he can't just, like, motor talk about his product like that. Like, that's just not Shane at all.
Well, it's just, like, he's, like, supposed to be the play-by-play guy, but, like, he's a douchebag rich kid. Like, he's not a baby face. Yeah.
And it doesn't work at all.
That's right. And as we've established, Shawn Michaels pretty damn terrible on commentary. So on this show, Too Much defeated LOD 2000 because this is where Animal was drunk.
Yeah. Brian Christopher and Scott Taylor pin Road Warrior Animal and Road Warrior Hawk in 2 minutes. That's a thing that happened and is on the official record.
Yes, it actually happened. Gangrel defeated Dustin Rhodes, who was doing his religious gimmick at this point.
Wolf.
Yeah. DOA beat Bradshaw and Vader. They are totally jobbing out Vader here.
Which is such a shame because what a fucking tag team Bradshaw and Vader would be.
Can you imagine, like, two dudes you would want to fight any less?
Just what a fucking like. If this weren't this era and it wasn't being run the way that this one's being run, like if WCW had a hold of Bradshaw and Vader at this point, they're fighting Hogan, right?
Oh, Vader and Austin would have been such a great pay-per-view main event.
Yeah.
Sadly, like the only match I believe they ever had one-on-one was just like on a random Raw. So yeah, missed opportunity with that. Also on the show, Austin destroyed a hearse backstage with a sledgehammer. Shawn Michaels interviewed Sable, asking her who her mystery partner was going to be that night. She didn't reveal who it was, and then her and Shawn Michaels danced, revealing Sable had absolutely no rhythm.
Well, I mean, famously, she had no rhythm.
Famously horrible dancer.
I just love that they made that part of her heel gimmick. Like, well, now it's time for her to do the grind.
Yeah.
Which is just the worst dance you've ever seen.
Kind of fascinatingly, this heat drew like the worst rating the show had drawn to date. You would have thought this would have drawn a really strong rating as it was the lead into the pay-per-view.
Yeah, but that also goes to show, like, a lot of Sunday Night Heats before then were like literally announcing matches, or like the first year of Sunday Night Heat, they were putting real matches on that show.
Yeah, it was a real show. Like it very much led into Raw. Like or they would start their stories on Sunday and finish them on Monday.
Yeah, there are heats where it's just like, hey, it's Shane versus X-Pac to decide the stipulation for the Road Dogg match later on. Like actual important matches.
Yeah. So this is August 30th, 1998. We're at Madison Square Garden in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. We've got 19,066 people in attendance. It's announced as 21,558. That's 15,274 paid for a massive $764,000 gate, plus another 2,500 people in the theater adjacent to Madison Square Garden, where they would have
so much about that.
Where they would have the Lions Den match. 1,800 of them paid for another $32,000, and then $209,000 in merchandise sales. I bet if we went back to like SummerSlam 95, that $200,000 in merchandise is on par with the gate.
Oh God, yeah, I would definitely say so. I would be amazed if they were doing 20,000 in merchandise back then too.
Yeah. This did about 700,000 buys, which is massively up from 235,000 the previous year for Bret versus Undertaker.
Look, we've talked about pay-per-view buy rates before, and it's tough to keep it it straight. Where this entire era, obviously, buy rates are up, but like
that's an explosion.
One of like the top 20 buy rates of all time, probably.
Yeah. Like. We made a list of the non-WrestleMania shows that drew the biggest buy rates. It'd definitely be in the top 10. Like Invasion, Backlash 2000. Not a lot else is jumping out at me. Starrcade 97. Bash the Beach 98. Like it's in the top 10 all time for non-WrestleManias. And like that's more buys than plenty of WrestleManias did.
Oh God, yeah.
Like you went back to WrestleMania the year before this, it did like less than 250,000 buys.
So just like, not only do you have that many more people showing up to your shows and that many more people watching on TV, you have like 500,000 more people paying like their $40 or whatever. Like, just imagine what a spike in revenue that is all of a sudden in like a year's time. That's nobody gains 500,000 paying viewers in 1 year.
That's insane. Like, that's unprecedented.
If WWE now got 1,000 new paying viewers in 1 year, they would lose their minds.
The show opens with a package that's focused on the Undertaker, Kane, Austin issue. Then we go into the arena where, as I previously mentioned, Highway to Hell is sadly dubbed over.
Like, I completely forgot that they actually had the actual song. Like, I was just like, oh, it's called Highway to Hell. All right, fine, that's something. Because when you watch this show, like, you just have to mentally insert it. because the music they choose instead is just the most generic shit in the world.
Yeah. We've got a classic set here. You know, it's Madison Square Garden, so of course the hard camera faces the entrance. It's the really short Madison Square Garden entrance with the crowd right on top of it. And we've got it's literally like the gate of hell that people are coming through.
I love that there's an actual gate that they have to open to come in. I love that visual.
Yeah, there's something so cool about Madison Square Garden and that short ramp. And it just feels different than any other show because you've got the hard camera facing the entrance.
Yeah, and just you can when something's really hot and the fans are really into it, you can see it because you can see them in the entranceway as the people come out. It's great.
Opening match for the European title, we've got D'Lo Brown defending against Val Venus. Val gets an absolutely massive pop here.
He does. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty much a star as soon as he debuted. The Val Venus, the build to the Val Venus character debuting is one of the best they ever did.
Which is such a funny thing to say, is that they put so much time and effort into successfully promoting this character. And then the second he came out, they were like, we have no idea what to do with this character.
No, never lives up to the potential. Watching him here, it's just
how can it?
He's got everything to be a main event guy, but it's just this character is a step too much. If he was just an arrogant ladies' man instead of a porn star.
And a few times they try to tone it down, and then they just go right back to the bad stuff.
They announced D'Lo as residing in Helsinki, which is the first time they've done this gimmick with the European title. I just find the European title so random and weird. They had a vision for what this belt was going to be, that they toured Europe a lot, and this would be the main event title when they were in Europe. And then their business picks up and they don't need to go to Europe all the time anymore, and it's totally irrelevant after that.
Just imagine if the WWE UK title was somebody on Raw won it, Seth Rollins, not even Seth Rollins, somebody who sucks. Fucking Scott Dawson won that shit. And then he just started defending it against Heath Slater on TV all the time. And it'd just be wait, what the fuck is the point of this belt again?
Yeah, it's just the TV title in WCW was great because it had special different rules that made it unique. They never managed to give the European title an identity.
No, it's just the belt for people so low on the card that they can't get to Intercontinental level, just to give them something to do.
Early in the match, they show Edge just kind of hanging out in the crowd. That's his gimmick. He's a moody, silent loner.
Yep.
This is a pretty good match that goes on for a really long time. They end up going 15 minutes. 15 minutes.
Fucking minutes.
Not needed. Probably could have been half that length to open the show.
I have to say, it's funny because of all the things that they say about the Attitude Era, not getting long matches is definitely one of them. This show has a bunch of long matches on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just when they would get to the pay-per-views, they didn't have really the depth of the roster to fill up the card. So instead they just had to really stretch things. Again, this match going 15 minutes.
Right.
There was an uncomfortable moment here where D'Lo goes for his running powerbomb, loses his grip, and just kind of drops Val, which, knowing that he's going to paralyze draws with that move a year later, was kind of hard to watch.
Yeah. And it's a shame because I always really liked that move when he did it, but you can tell watching it that that's not a safe move for him to do at all.
No, he's not strong enough to be doing that to guys,
right.
Especially a guy the size of Val. D'Lo, Val puts on D'Lo's chest protector, goes to the top, but Jimmy Corderas accidentally shakes the ropes and crotches Val. Val comes back with an inverted atomic drop and shoves the referee out of the way. And we've got a disqualification. Not the greatest finish here. This put heat on the referee instead of D'Lo.
Then after the match, Val Venus fucking money shots the referee.
God. That just looks like a move that would hurt like hell, having a guy that big hit you with a splash.
Yeah, you might forget how big Val really was. He's like 250, 6'2". Like, he's a huge dude.
Jacked. I mean, I cannot put over how great he looks here.
Yeah. Oh, jacked as hell. Like, he's probably got the best body on the whole roster at this point.
Yeah. 100% has a main event body.
Yeah.
Every time I see Val Venus, I'm like, this guy could have been a massive star. Like, he was really over, but like, this guy's got all the tools to be a main eventer. Like,
if he comes into this company at any other point,
it's just for this exact period and this exact character, he just couldn't get there.
Right, because I mean, he had been a massive like teen beat star in Mexico, and like he's babyface all over from head to toe, and like literally they bring him in here. It's just such a weird gimmick to put him in, and look, it's fondly remembered by everyone, and it should be because there's a lot of good moments with it. But man, he could have been so much more. He really could
have. We go backstage where we see the destroyed Hearst that Austin smashed on Heat. Then Mankind shows up, and he's kind of upset because he said it was his rental car, and he was planning to put Kane in it tonight.
Oh, man.
Next up, we've got Kaientai against the Oddities. I was so looking forward to this because I knew this was where ICP came out with the Oddities, and they fucking edited it out. Why would they edit that?
I was wondering about that because they're here at ringside.
Yeah, they're actually there. Like, they like did a song for the show, but I don't see why you would have to edit that out. Like,
it probably is a rights issue. They probably would have to pay for it.
Well, yeah, you have to pay royalties to anybody who shows up. I don't know, but it was very disappointing because this match is trash.
Okay, guys, here's the thing.
The Oddities are so bad.
This is a 10-minute long match between 4 people who are 5'8" and smaller, and 3 people who are 6'8" and taller.
Jesus Christ! Yeah, so you've got Kurgan, who we've talked about our admiration before as Kurgan the Interrogator, but here he's
great man he is.
Kurgan the dancing goofball. I have no idea who this guy is. No memory of him at all. And Golga, who's Earthquake under a mask.
That's Earthquake?
Yeah, it's John Tenta.
I had no idea that was John Tenta that whole time.
Yeah,
are you
lost
serious?
A lot of weight.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I think if it had just been Earthquake, it would have at least been some good nostalgia here.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's really weird.
With his fucking Cartman shirt on.
Yeah, like
everything about this.
We have now reviewed like every like Kaientai match in history, like every like proper Kaientai with like Men's Teo and Dick Togo.
This match it's wretched, but it's not Kaientai's fault because they come up with all sorts of like creative ways to get their asses kicked.
Oh my God,
personal favorite is when Giant Silva's in the ring and like they climb up on each other's backs to try to be as tall as him, and he just choke slams all 4 of them.
Yeah, now I'm so entertained by Kaientai. Like, they are fantastic. I wish they had found more for them to do.
Yes.
But yeah, Kurgan and Silva chokeslam all 4 members of Kaientai and pin them. And then again, they cut the post-match celebrations. They don't have to show the ICP.
Fun fact about Giant Silva, for the record, is he was a professional basketball player.
That makes sense.
And would go on to team up with another giant, Giant Singh, who you might know better as the Great Khali in New Japan.
That sounds like a horrible tag team.
It's the worst tag team that's ever been formed anywhere, ever. And one time they defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi and Kenzo Suzuki in a match.
Oh.
Just a little Japanese history there for you.
Next up, we've got a hair versus hair match as Double J Jeff Jarrett takes on X-Pac. This is like one of the first hair versus hair matches I can remember in the WWF. You know, Vince was never into this gimmick.
You can just hear the voice of Jim Cornette pitching this, can't you?
Fucking great! Somebody's gonna get his head shaved. God damn!
And just Vince being like, So what? Like, they get their head shaved, that's bad? I go to the barber.
Bullshit. But of course they're not actually going to get their head shaved.
But see, here's the thing, is that this kind of shit only works if having, like, your hair versus hair matches come from a time when heels were the pretty boys who were obsessed with their looks and thought they were ladies' men and shit like that. So it would be like Playboy Buddy Rose, who was actually super ugly but valued his long golden hair and thought he was the most beautiful man in the world, getting his head shaved. That's big money, because fuck that guy. He thinks he's so great.
Yeah. We're going to see Jim Cornette get his head shaved bald. Of course people are going to pay to see that.
And it comes from another time when having long hair was a better thing. Our top star is bald. It's not a bad thing to have no hair anymore.
That's a very fair point. On Heat, Jeff Jarrett and his bodyguards, Southern Justice, cut Howard Finkel's hair. Southern Justice is, of course, the Godwins with like a cooler repackaged gimmick where they've, got suits and sunglasses.
But no shirts underneath. It's just like sports coat over no shirt.
That's very weird.
Yeah. With bow ties.
Sergeant Slaughter forces Southern Justice to leave. X-Pac gets a huge pop. He's got Finkel out with him. Finkel does the crotch chops along with X-Pac. This match is very good, as you might expect. Really great pace here. Good mix of X-Pac's quickness against Jarrett's superior size and technical ability.
Is X-Pac like the number 3 or 4 babyface in this company at this point?
He's pretty high up there. He's beloved. Like, he's more over than Triple H is.
Yeah, like, X-Pac gets such enormous pops during this era. Like, the fact that a couple years from then X-Pac sucks will become the chant doesn't even make sense, because he's ridiculously over.
98-99, he is a massive, massive star. And then... Yeah, he turns heel and he never really recovers from that.
Yeah, Uncle Cracker, that'll do that to you.
Greatest heel theme of all time.
Sure is.
They have a good back and forth match. Goes over 10 minutes. X-Pac ends up getting the win with the X Factor after getting the botched guitar shot, hits Jarrett. X-Pac gets the win. Southern Justice try to get Jarrett out, but Billy Gunn and Road Dogg run them off. And then the Headbangers and Draws also show up to help hold Jarrett down so that Pac can cut his hair. And this turns out to be a complete mess. They try to cut his hair with some clippers, and it's just not working.
And look, like, I've long speculated that when wrestlers don't actually intend to go bald, but they want to just get a haircut, that they're specifically like, hey, don't actually shave holes in my head. Like, give me something that a stylist can work with. Because that's really what this seems like. They take like 3 slices off the side, and then Finkel goes in with the clippers, and it's the big, long, sharp scissors that are super fucking dangerous to just be waving about in the middle of a ring.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is, like, they've got these tiny little clippers, and Jarrett's hair is all wet after he's been sweating wrestling for, 10, 15 minutes. Like, trying to cut that with those little clippers is just not going to happen. You need the heavy-duty ones.
We were trying to think if WWE had ever done a time where they properly shaved someone's head. The only one that we could think of was Vince, which, of course, it would be Vince himself that would go through with the whole damn thing.
Angle got his head shaved too, but I don't remember if they actually. I think he got buzzed in the ring. I don't remember if they actually shaved him bald in the ring.
No, I don't think they finished it. I think they just fucked up his hair, and then it was bald after that.
Yeah. They show Method Man in the stands. That's a pretty good poll for 1998.
And Method Man is so obviously high that I love it. He's wearing a T-shirt as a hat.
Then we've got Doc Hendricks in the theater to show us the Lion's Den. I did not remember Michael Hayes still being, Doc Hendricks at this point. I did not remember him still doing interviews this far into 1998.
Yeah, this is still like a year before he starts managing the Hardy Boys?
Oh, God. Can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah, where he starts putting on the cargo pants and running to the ring.
Yeah, that's next summer.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about not even the Lions Den match yet. Let's talk about the setup. Because they literally, instead of putting this contraption that they've created for the Lions Den match in the ring or like in the arena, they have it in a totally different theater across the street, right?
Yeah. It's so more tickets. This is what they did like back in the day with the Garden, like in the 80s when they'd sell it out. They'd let people buy tickets for the theater to watch it on closed circuits. They could sell a couple thousand more tickets.
It's just fascinating to me. Like, I know that it's a sellout at the Garden, but like the idea that 1,800 more people paid money just to see one match
and to watch the show on screens.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like probably paid pretty decent ticket price too.
And they're white hot too.
Yeah.
Like they're not like, oh, this fucking sucks, like at the Manhattan Center for like Raw's 25th anniversary. No, they're just like, yeah, it's finally the match time.
They definitely could have sold out the Manhattan Center here too if they had wanted to.
At first I thought it was the Manhattan Center, and I was gonna say how fucking cool that was, but it's not at all.
That would have been really cool if they had done something at the Manhattan Center here too.
Oh god, yeah.
Then Michael Cole interviews The Rock. Then we've got Sable and her mystery partner against Mark Miro and Jacqueline. The mystery partner turns out to be Edge, which is not really a surprise. Anyone is excited to see.
Like, I do wonder when I watch this, like, did they make a mistake by putting Edge in the Brood? And when I say that, obviously it all worked out for the best, and it led to the Edge and Christian and all of that good stuff that followed. But did Edge have legs as a single star that they just delayed heavily?
Yeah, well, and it's weird that he ended up in the Brood because he was feuding with Gangrel and Christian, and then I don't remember how they became a group.
They just threw them in together.
Yeah,
he was just like, oh yeah, I'm part of you guys now.
Like, he's Edge. He has all the potential in the world. Looks fantastic here. Already pretty good in the ring. Had kind of a rocky debut where he injured... can't think of who it was. It was one of the guys from the Bariquas and ended the guy's career.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is a pretty good match. This is okay. I mean, Sable has cooled off already from WrestleMania. Yes. Like, her getting in the ring is not special the way it was at WrestleMania.
Like, she's doing way more shit to Mark Mero than she did at WrestleMania, and the fans don't care. She does a fucking top rope Frankensteiner, and then the fans are like, all right. And like Edge is like openly telling her spots to do.
Yeah, you know, she's trying.
Yeah.
Edge hits Miro with the downward spiral for the win, and then throws Sable on top for the pin. You know, quick match. You know, was what it was.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really interesting to say about it per se. I just find it so interesting what different path Edge could have taken, because Bruce Pritchard has said that like they thought Edge had like Rock-like potential at this point. They already knew. And he won't really make it for another 7 years.
Yeah. It's not till 05 he really becomes a main event star.
And like maybe if he doesn't go into the Brood and become a tag team wrestler first and then try to get over during the most packed roster time in the history of the business, in like 01, 02. Maybe he makes it if he starts now. It's just interesting to think about.
Backstage, Michael Cole interviews Mankind, who is considering forfeiting his tag title match against the Outlaws because Kane isn't there to team with him. He asks Cole if he will be his partner. Vince then shows up and talks Foley into doing the match. This was some pretty great character work by both guys here.
This is my favorite Vince. Like, there's cartoonishly evil Vince. There's very professional boss Vince. My favorite Vince is cajoling promoter Vince, getting in Mankind's head. Like, they work off of each other so brilliantly well. Yeah. And, like, the idea of Vince being like, Mick, when you were a kid, you dreamed of wrestling in Madison Square Garden, and now you can live out your dream. You can go out there and make history as the man who won the tag team titles by himself. While Mankind is just putting up like tiny little complaint, like, oh, but I don't have a weapon, and I'm only one guy, and they're two guys. And Vince is like, no, take this candlestick, go do it.
Just sending him out there, absolutely obliterated in a 2-on-1 match. Like, yeah, just sleazy promoter Vince.
But like, what's in that for Vince? I wasn't too sure about that.
I don't know. Either he wants to deliver on the match he promoted, or just doesn't really like Mick Foley, wants to see him get his ass kicked.
Yeah, just like the links Vince McMahon goes to fuck with Mankind for no reason. And it comes back to haunt him so hard.
Next up, we've got a Lion's Den match. It's Owen Hart against Ken Shamrock. This feud started after Shamrock won the King of the Ring. Owen claimed he was the real king. They wrestled at Fully Loaded in a dungeon match in the basement of the Hart House. Owen won that match after he hit Shamrock in the head with a dumbbell. So before they fought on Owen's turf, and now they're going to fight on Shamrock's turf. The Lion's Den is like a circular UFC style cage. There's no ropes. There's like a very tiny ring. Like, how big do you think this little like wrestling area was?
Oh God, if it's 9 by 9, I'd be shocked.
Like, they could barely lay down on the mat.
In fact, let me go ahead and paint you guys a word picture here, because this is something that I've never seen the like of ever. It's like, it very clearly somebody was like, all right, we want something that's like the Octagon, but we don't want to get sued. So but we also want to find a way to get cameras in there. So let's create what looks like almost like a funnel with the little chute at the bottom broken off, so that there's a walkway around the top that the cameraman can walk around and point the camera down into. But it comes to like, it's really wide at the top where the cameraman's walking around, but it like comes in close at the bottom for some. I don't know why they didn't just make it the same size that it is at the top. Because when they're inside of it, there's nowhere in the ring that they can be without like reaching out and touching each other. And it's just baffling.
So despite those challenges, I thought this match was awesome.
My favorite part of it was that they kept throwing each other into the cage as if it were the ropes, and they kept like bouncing off and doing clotheslines and stuff. I'm like, guys, that's not the ropes.
Shamrock's ability to run up this cage was
Holy
so cool.
shit, that was impressive.
3 or 4 times he just runs up the side of this thing and like hits a Hurricane Rana, a tornado DDT, transitions into an arm bar, just crazy stuff.
Yeah, if you thought that this was going to be Ken Shamrock works the mat and like gets it all bloody and mat wrestling, no, this is Ken Shamrock doing parkour off the cage.
Yeah, just like he does a springboard off the cage, Owen catches him with a power slam. At some point, I began to wonder, like, how do you win this match? Because there's no referee in the cage. Like,
yeah, they don't make it clear that it's a pinfall or submission kind of thing.
The announcers don't seem to have much concept of how to win this match, but I guess it's just not really important.
Right. And,
some of the crowd was chanting boring. I can't believe anybody thought this was boring, but I wonder if they just couldn't see what was happening.
Yeah, it's only 9 minutes long, so it wasn't particularly boring, but I can definitely imagine, because there are like big metal pillars like holding this thing up. So like I imagine it was very difficult to see. And the camera angles are horrible because this thing's kind of up against the wall too, because the theater obviously all points towards the wall. So where the stage would be, this thing is. So only the guy who's on top of the thing really has a decent camera angle, and he's like literally crookedly pointing it down at them. It's a shitty way to watch a match.
Owen gets Shamrock in a sleeper hold, but Shamrock runs up the cage to escape it, which was, again, we always put over Ken Shamrock, but this was some of his best work.
He runs up the cage and lands on his feet like it's wild, like out of a dragon
how
sleeper.
Do you do that? I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that.
No. I mean, he does basically the sleeper counter that Bret Hart did to Steve Austin at their famous match. It's up a cage that is slanted away from him without any problems.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the match, he just runs up the cage and gets to the top.
He gets Owen in the armbar and then transitions into the ankle lock for the submission win. How cool was this? Like, how amazing was Ken Shamrock?
I'm amazed that they didn't do another one of these. Like, this wasn't a huge success.
They did. They did Shamrock and Blackman at SummerSlam the year after this in a weapons cage match.
Was it the same kind of thing, or was it just a normal cage?
No, it was a weapons Lions Den match, yeah.
Okay.
But it was not nearly as good.
Yeah. Like, there are ways that you could do this better just by changing the shape of the thing, but like for him to have his own signature kind of blow-off match is cool. And Shamrock is wildly over here. Like, even though they were chanting boring, when he wins, that pop is gigantic.
Yeah. And of course, he runs up the cage to the top of it to pose.
Like, in 1 second. Like, he just sprints up it as if gravity were not a problem.
Yeah. So JR teases Shamrock versus Severn. Something we've talked about before. That seems like kind of a natural step for this Lions Den cage, that they would get Shamrock and Severn in there. But I feel like already by this point, Severn's pretty much done.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing, is that this feud is really between Severn and Shamrock, with just Hart as Severn's stand-in. Because Severn's even outside the ring watching, and then he just walks off when Owen's getting his ass kicked. So they're clearly feuding. They just never have that match.
No, they never have a pay-per-view match. They wrestle on Raw like once or twice.
Yeah.
Michael Cole interviews Steve Austin, who's got the Smoking Skull belt on his shoulder. He says that he respects The Undertaker, but he will do anything to win tonight. Then we've got our no-holds-barred Falls Count Anywhere match for the tag titles. Mankind and Kane, but Kane is not there, defending against the New Age Outlaws. I noticed that even in New York, Foley didn't really get any semblance of a pop here.
No. I mean, he gets chance at the end of this after he's just taken an almighty beating in much the same way that he would. This is really where that Mick Foley starts to get over as a babyface because of the ass whoopings that he takes starts. Yeah. Like, so soon after the Hell in a Cell. Like, this is where it starts to become a legend. But he's not there yet.
No. We've got it's just a weird setup here where the Outlaws are faces. Like, Mankind is a tweener but sympathetic, and we've got a 2-on-1 handicap match, and the Outlaws just destroying Foley with weapon shots.
It's so funny that the Outlaws would be such an integral part of Mankind's greatest moment, like when he wins the title and he's like DX's little buddy. Because the New Age Outlaws spend so much time savagely beating the shit out of Mankind during this era.
Yeah, and DX helping Foley win the title is only a couple months after this. That's December.
Yeah, like, this is hardly the only time that Billy Gunn and Road Dogg beat Mankind's fucking ass.
No, they threw him off the stage in a dumpster before WrestleMania.
Yeah, they never, made up after that. Here, they just... That power bomb that they do through the chairs.
Yeah, they set up 2 chairs together and double power bomb him through them. It's absolutely sick.
And there are ways to take that bump. Like, you see it all the time these days. It's like a staple of hardcore matches now, where you make sure you hit the 2 seats in the middle so they bend down and it's not that bad a bump. Mankind does not take the bump that way. Oh. He takes the bump on the seat. The chair does not fold up. He folds up.
Oh, Jesus.
It's like, whoa, that's not how you do that.
And then they hit him with a spike pile driver on one of the tag belts to get the 3 count. Quick, fun 5-minute match, I'd say.
Yeah, and there's huge sympathy on Mick at the end of this. There really is. Like, the fans start chanting for when he kicks out of the power bomb through the chairs. That's when the fans start chanting.
After the match, the Outlaws throw Mankind into the dumpster of weapons that they brought down. And then Kane pops out of the dumpster with a sledgehammer and hits Foley in the face with it off screen.
I love the idea. I know that this isn't the case, but I just, in my head, I want to believe that, they're pushing this dumpster towards the ring, and Kane's just like, hey, can I hop in? And they're just like, yeah, all right. And they just push him, fully knowing he's in there, to the ring.
Next up, we've got our sub-main event. It's the ladder match for the Intercontinental title. The Rock defends against Triple H. Triple H gets a big stars entrance here with the DX band playing him out live. My God, the DX band is terrible.
Has anyone ever looked less cool than the lead singer of the DX band?
What a loser.
And here's the thing.
Horrible.
Triple H is over here. He is. And DX is cool. But Triple H himself at this point is still in that weird period where he hasn't figured out who he is yet.
Yeah.
So he's still wearing like the big dorky tights, and he doesn't fit with everybody else, and he's just kind of off. And like the DX band is lame. So like you'd basically have all of the bad parts of DX in the ring. And it's just like, this doesn't work.
So Triple H has China backing him up, and Rock has Mark Henry, which it's kind of random that it's just Mark Henry, but I guess they wanted to just give each of them one guy to back them up.
Well, that's because Mark Henry's still trying to bang China.
No, of course.
That's why he'd want to be out there, I guess.
Triple H has an injured knee. He goes on the shelf for a while, pretty much right after this match. I don't really remember him ever defending the IC title after he wins it here.
Oh, I didn't realize that like, because that's the storyline too, is that he has a bad knee. I didn't realize that was real as well.
Yeah, which I think ends up adding to the drama of this match, that he's got this knee injury and like he can't move well, and Rock is working his knee the whole time.
Now let the record show that both of these guys have gone on record during this time of saying that they fucking hated each other at this point.
I can believe that.
Vicious rivalry, because they're both trying to become top guys. They're both trying to get that spot right below Austin.
And you could almost believe that they would, go all the way with Triple H after this, right?
Right. At this point, looking at this
far,
it's not clear which one of these guys is the next top babyface, but it's one of them. It seems clear. Obviously, Triple H is going to go on to become the top heel for the next 20 years. But at this point, he seems like a lock as a top babyface. The Rock looks like the top heel for the next 20 years at this point. But the fans in this match pretty much tell you how the future is going to go.
Yeah. The Garden crowd is very into Rock.
Yeah.
Triple H hits Rock with the ladder, and King says he swung the ladder like Mark McGuire swings a baseball bat. JR asks why we never talk about Sammy Sosa. That was a very weird bit of commentary.
Was that supposed to be in reference to Rock being black?
I don't think so.
I mean,
this is during the home run chase, but yeah, I don't know why. Is Jim Ross a Cubs fan?
No.
He's from Oklahoma. Yeah, you wouldn't think he would be a Cubs fan.
Yeah, very random.
Yeah. Rock works on Triple H's knee. He sandwiches Triple H's knee in the ladder, then hits it with a chair, then hits a knee breaker onto the ladder, which is not a move I would look forward to taking.
No, not particularly pleasant at all.
Rock goes to climb the ladder. Triple H is able to get back into the ring and knock him off. Triple H baseball slides the ladder into Rock's face. This leads to Rock bleeding. The crowd was not really into the match to this point, which I thought was interesting.
It's funny, too, because there isn't a huge history of ladder matches before this.
No,
right?
This is only the second one. It's the third one, because you've had the two Shawn Razor ones.
But it's been 4 or 5 years since those other ones. This isn't a super familiar concept to people.
Yeah. Last one was SummerSlam 95.
Yeesh.
Yeah. They do wake up when Triple H starts climbing for the belt. Rock knocks the ladder over. Triple H takes a fantastic bump here where he corkscrews through the air and comes down on his back.
Yes.
I couldn't believe this.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah. This was like a Jeff Hardy bump.
And it's funny because while Triple H takes the hardest bumps in this match, and yet the bumps I remember are the ones The Rock takes, because he takes those Rock bumps where he makes stuff that doesn't hurt look like it's crazy, and he just bounces everywhere, whereas Triple H is actually hurting himself.
Rock hits a people's elbow onto the ladder and then a rock bottom. Rock climbs very slowly. Triple H is able to yank him off, and he hits the pedigree. Triple H makes his dramatic climb. Looks like he's got the belt won, but Mark Henry throws powder into his eyes. Rock and Triple H both climb the ladders. China hits Rock with a low blow. That allows Triple H to win the title. Great match. Like, I loved this.
It's phenomenal. Like this, they've had a lot of really good matches together. For my money, this is the best one. Like, this is really, really great.
I thought this was one of the best ladder matches too. Like,
yeah,
different from the real crash style we would later see, but great drama, great story, and they do take some big bumps.
And see, that's what I appreciate, is that ladder matches after the TLC concept gets invented become this thing where it's just like, create this spot, do this spot, it looks crazy, the fans go nuts. This is a match with a ladder in it, and I appreciate that.
Then we get something very weird, as exclusive home video footage shows Rock limping back through the curtain. Meanwhile, we see and hear Bruce Pritchard and Pat Patterson calling for Undertaker. A doctor tries to attend to Rock. Rock tells him to get lost, and he cuts a quick babyface promo on Triple H, talking about how The Rock is still the people's champion, best damn Intercontinental champion there ever was, and he'll be the champion again.
So damn entertaining. The fans are eating that shit up, too.
I don't know why this is on the WWE Network version, because this definitely wasn't on the original pay-per-view.
Yeah, where would they have been airing this?
This is definitely a home video exclusive.
That makes sense.
Yeah, like this is something they put on the VHS. And I guess they put the VHS version up on the network because that was the version where they had cut out Highway to Hell and the ICP.
That makes sense.
Yeah. All right, so we've got our main event. Steve Austin defends the WWF title against The Undertaker. Taker is out to the version of his song that I absolutely love, the like darker, faster paced hard rock version.
Yep.
Cool entrance with pyro. He's walking with purpose, but Jim Ross is putting him over as a man's man, the conscience of the WWF, which is the first time I had heard that phrase used.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, I think it is.
Yeah. I mean, again, kind of weird that JR is just like putting Taker over as a babyface here after he's now aligned himself with Kane.
Here's the thing, is that I don't really remember before this Jim Ross talking about Mark Calloway rather than The Undertaker. You know what I mean? And like, we talked about that promo that he did where he was like, Vince, you used me as your dog for so long, but now I want the belt. Is that before this?
Yeah, that was before King of the Ring.
Yeah. And like that, I guess that's the beginning of where we're supposed to acknowledge that Mark Calloway, the man, is the most respected person in the locker room and everybody loves him and he's the biggest deal. And like, that's just going to be a part of The Undertaker's character from this point on. But it's just weird because like the announcers have never really put that over until right here.
Yeah. I do like the more human version of the Undertaker character. I just think there's more you can do with it, and it's a better fit for this era where they're doing a more kind of realistic, reality-based product.
Right.
But yeah, it's weird timing. Everything about this is a little weird. That like they've clearly set up this intriguing storyline with Kane, but they paid off the big reveal on Raw. They revealed they are in fact working together. And now Taker comes out for like a face versus face respect match here.
Yep.
This does feel huge, though. Like, we've got the two biggest guys in the company fighting on a big pay-per-view in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
They square off right off the opening bell. They're exchanging punches. Taker gets the better of that exchange. The first really notable thing that happens here is they accidentally butt heads running the ropes, and you can see Austin is just knocked out. Like, you can see his eyes immediately glaze over.
I love those moments.
Ugh.
And because like those rare moments where you can see like a little look of panic in Taker's eyes, like, oh shit, I knocked out the guy who's got to beat me.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. Tough break. Austin says he barely remembers the rest of this match. Like, he was pretty much out on his feet from here. Ends up still wrestling a very good match. This is like one of the only good Austin Taker matches.
Yeah, and it's to some degree a carry job by Taker. Like, you can kind of tell at various points that like Austin's kind of out and not really like given a ton, but it does, like, it's a good match because really it just becomes Taker kicking his ass.
They go back and forth. Austin works on Taker's leg. Then Kane comes down the aisle, but Taker tells him to go to the back. On the one hand, I feel like this match was sort of going to be in a waiting pattern until we like saw what Kane was going to do. On the other hand, it does feel like a lot of the intrigue is gone from this match once we know that Kane is not going to get involved.
Right. And I just kept looking at the ramp to see if Kane was going to come. And like, I kept just being surprised as the match went on. Like, really? He's still not coming out? He's still not coming out?
You know what you could have done that would have been super cool is like they had a backdrop behind the gate with lights, and you could have just seen Kane's silhouette the whole match.
And then the person steps forward and it's just like Shane or somebody.
That would have been different. Yeah, I mean, it's another, like, it's a conundrum because I've seen matches fall flat before where like the crowd was just waiting for the interference because they knew somebody was going to interfere. So I guess you do kind of need to address the Kane element here, but it's also just kind of lame to have it be like, oh no, Kane's not actually going to interfere after we spent like months building up the fact that they were actually together.
Yeah. And I mean, I get what they don't is, well, actually, you know what? I don't get why they don't. Because in the context of this match where it's a babyface versus a babyface and it's all respect between Taker and Austin, it makes sense why Taker would have said no. But the fact that they just go straight to it being heel Undertaker like the next day, it makes no sense.
Well, and I feel like, you know, Austin's going to keep the belt here. You can do the finish with botched Kane interference, and you can have the intrigue of like, did Kane mean to screw Undertaker? Like,
right.
Are they actually together, or did he not want Undertaker to win the title here?
And I mean, that's the template for so many pay-per-view main events during this period is 20 people run down, accidentally fuck each other. Austin somehow escapes with the belt. Everyone argues the next day on Raw.
Yeah. I mean, you also could have done Kane tries to interfere, Mankind shows up and cuts him off, and like that's how you get your Mankind babyface turn. And that would have been I think that would have been a huge moment for Mankind if he's able to like run Kane off there.
Absolutely. And we've established
you have an established relationship between Austin and Foley. Like, yes, they were feuding recently, but before that they were the tag champions together back in 97.
In the storylines, the only person on the entire roster that Austin kind of sort of likes is Mankind.
Yeah. So, you know, that's something there. Like, I think that might have been a better way to get out of this.
I agree.
They fight down to the floor, and then the crowd. This is super uncontrolled. Like, no security at all. Like, no cameras. Like, you really can't. Like, they've just got the crane shot. People are swarming them, so you really can't even see what's going on.
Yeah, this is so different from how it is now.
Yeah.
We're like 5 minutes before they even go into the audience, like the security people have already cleared everybody out. And they just, the way that they do seating now is that they make sure that there are huge places for them to go where there just aren't people seated anymore. Back then, it seemed like people were just everywhere.
Yeah, like anybody who wanted to could have just punched one of these guys. Like,
yeah. In fact, as Austin comes into the ring, somebody took a swing at him, and you can see him looking back like, that motherfucker.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the crazy things about this entrance is like how much the fans are just right on top of the guys and can just like reach out and touch them.
Yeah, I think like 3 dudes get like a handful of Sable on her way down to the ring too.
Yeah. So Austin takes a backdrop on the concrete floor here, which is insane. Like, you got a dude with neck problems. He's getting backdropped on concrete.
Yeah, there's a reason why Austin's career doesn't last super long.
No, because
it seemed like every main event match he was doing shit like this.
There's no reason to take that bump. Like, this match did not need that.
No.
They go back into the ring. Austin goes for the stunner, but Taker pushes him off and then does his like backflip deal over the top rope down to the floor. Austin goes for an axe handle off the apron. Taker catches him out of the air and rams him into the ring post. Taker then puts Austin on the announce table, goes up to the top rope, and hits the craziest leg drop I have ever seen. Doesn't break the announce table. He just crashes into Austin, and they just sort of like slide off the table. This looked really rough for both guys.
Here's the thing. The only really comparable thing that we've seen off a top rope through an announce table is an elbow drop, which is just a normal back bump for the most part, as long as you hit it right the way Shane always seems to, where like you're fully stretched out and hit the table at the same time, so it takes your weight. Not a huge deal. Obviously, it's not comfortable. It still hurts, I'm sure. But this is something totally different. The Undertaker's 300-pound ass is 10 foot above the floor, and he jumps with an ass-first splash onto this table. There's only like 2 places his ass can go where it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Like, he either sits his ass on top of Steve Austin's head, which could kill him. He hits the edge of the table.
What happened? Like,
huh? Yeah.
Pretty much what happened there. Like, just
but he could have hit the edge of the table, which wouldn't have given. Probably would have broken his tailbone. Yeah. So, like, why do you do this?
This was nuts. Like, a great spot, but yeah, this was insane. And like, was this that much? I mean, you could have done a much safer bump where he like put him on the table and like jumped off the railing and did a leg drop right there through the table, and that would have been much more controlled.
But like, and I almost wonder if it was pressure for Taker. Like, he had just been in Hell in a Cell where Mick did all these crazy spots. I almost feel like he was like, I want my moment in all the clip videos, you know? And he never does a spot like this ever again.
No, of course not. It'd be insane to it. The other thing is he's got a messed up ankle. He's having trouble even walking, and somehow he pulls off that jump.
And by the way, and this is probably the most important part, it's beautiful.
Oh, my God.
He is perfect. This is not a guy who does leg drops every night.
No, this is insane.
Just phenomenal athleticism for a big-ass dude.
They go back into the ring and do a double clothesline. Austin hits a stunner, but he doesn't get all of it. Taker kicks out at 2. Taker hits a choke slam. He signals for the tombstone. He gets Austin up. Austin slips out. Taker crotches Austin on the top rope, then hits him with a Russian leg sweep. Austin low blows Taker, nails him with the stunner for the win. I thought that was a really good match. I had not been such a big fan of it in the past, but I looked on it in a more favorable light this time. Like, this was a heavyweight title fight.
Absolutely. Like, considering that this is one of those matches that you would have waited for years to finally see is, oh, dude, it's finally Austin versus Taker. I feel like you got your money's worth for that. Like, to see these 2 huge legendary stars squaring off, and you get a clean victory. And it's weird what happens afterwards, because Austin punches him directly in the balls in order to win the match. And then Taker's like, well, I respect you.
Yeah, so Taker grabs the belt from the referee, but he ends up just handing it to Austin, and JR gets to put him over again for, oh, that's one hell of a man right there. Feels a little self-indulgent to me. Probably would have been more intriguing if Austin and if Taker and Kane had beaten the hell out of Austin after the match, but they were really set on this respect deal.
And the interesting thing about it too is it could have been better. It really could have, if a couple of different things had happened. One, Austin doesn't sell it at all. Like, the second Taker hands him the belt, he's just posing on the ropes. Like, he doesn't sell it like, whoa, that's weird that my biggest enemy is giving this to me right now. And I mean, I guess it's not really in his character to sell that kind of thing. But like, you didn't even like give him a nod or something. Like, it just felt very odd and rushed. And then the Undertaker just goes and stands with Kane in the aisleway for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're just like, are they going to run down and beat up Stone Cold? No, they just leave.
Just going to chill.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, all in all, a very good pay-per-view.
Oh,
I thought
God,
one
yeah.
of the best SummerSlams. Like, just everything that this kind of had everything that was good about this era.
Yeah, just from start to finish, a ton of fun. Like, there's a lot of random shit on the show, but it's the good kind of random shit, the kind of shit that you like want to talk about with people and be like, "Did you see that? That was fucking weird."
Yeah,
and then there's like really good matches in there too, which is very rare for this time.
Yeah. A Lion's Den match, the Oddities, Kaientai, like even the like kind of dumb, lame undercard stuff was good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a wrap for SummerSlam 98. Any other final thoughts?
Not much. I will say, if anybody out there argues that the Undertaker's, I would say that this is the best incarnation of the Undertaker's entrance music. Yeah. I know that a lot of people would say that like the Ministry is their favorite version, but this is my favorite, like right before the Ministry, where it's still got that heavy metal thing, but doesn't have all like the Undertaker stuff in it, where it's just like he has like a normal person's entrance music. I like that.
Before he gets like the Latin chant in.
Yeah. Like this is cool. This is perfect Undertaker for me right here. Like a real person.
Yeah, with badass entrance music.
Hell yeah.
Oh, all right. So that's a wrap for SummerSlam 98.